And I was thinking about this recently as I've been planning for the Saints weekend, which is the weekend before Christmas. And I was asking myself how to design this thing in a way that is simple because we've become so victim of technology, so victim of backward practices and backward thinking. I was asking myself, how can we just make this simple? The great values of good people coming together. And of course, I keep having a vision. What is Christmas? What is it in Christmas? What is that spirit, that beautiful spirit, that warmth that I want to recreate? So I try to visualize Christmas. And if you all would participate with me for a moment in the chat, would you populate where did you get your image of what a perfect Christmas looks like, or what Christmas should be? What is the visual of Christmas? How do you dress for Christmas? How does it feel? What do you do on Christmas? Where did you get this imagery, the sound and the smell and the sights and the behaviors and where did you get that? Someone populate into the chat. By someone, I mean a lot of you, all of you, in fact. First person to populate wrote movies. Indeed. Now, which movie? Someone name me a few movies. Another person writes movies. Yeah, name me a few movies. Give me some titles here. That's right. Yeah, a couple people. Home Alone. Yeah, a couple people. Home Alone. Exactly. Exactly. Home Alone. Boom. Exactly. And we can keep going. And there's a number of other classics that we have. But that's where you came to understand what Christmas is. It wasn't your family, it wasn't your culture. And I was asking myself, I was sitting there as a grown black man in my nice, comfortable living room, and I was pondering, which is to say, I was in deep thought, very contemplative, and I was trying to figure out for a moment, how has my conception of how I celebrate Christmas with my family, how did that come from a blonde, blue-eyed white boy, white child? How did that how did that happen? How did that happen? It's a damn good movie. It's beautifully executed. And it has so many elements that we hold dear, the Christmas tree. I just recently had a friend visiting from Europe, and when we were driving around Georgia, she kept saying, "Oh, these are such American houses. These houses are so American." And what she really means by American is she means that they look like this house from Home Alone. Yes, that's what they look like. Large brick, beautiful buildings, American colonial style on a nice little piece of land, have some trees around them. Big houses, as though all Americans have big houses. Well, if you grew up outside of America and you never been there, you only seen the movies and the classics, the strong classics like this one. Well, of course, those are American houses. That's what that style is called, American. And locked in with her view of American is upper class. This isn't, they didn't show lower class Americans. So you have a black male who grew up in America's lowest class, understanding and comprehending Christmas to be something like this, which is in fact far out of reach, not only for me, but for many. And there's some fascinating things here. So you got to have a house like this. And this house also must include a chimney. And it doesn't matter where you live or where you're from, because that's Christmas. Christmas involves a chimney and it involves snow. Now, snow comes from the European conception of Christmas, which is in fact a European concept. Santa Claus. Yes, it's a European concept. I find it comical when black folks are like, well, why can't we have a black Santa? You can, because he's a fictional character, so he could be black or purple. It doesn't matter. He's fictional, but it is in fact from European folklore and mythology. But the fascinating thing is it's also locked into the upper class because number one, it requires snow, and I grew up in Los Angeles, which is a desert. And then I moved to Las Vegas. I moved many places, but more recently I bought a house in Las Vegas, which is also a desert. So there's no need to have a fireplace. Well, how's Santa get in here? Jeez, he's locked out. He's locked out. We got to leave the front door unlocked for Santa to come in. This is where you learned what Christmas is, what family is. This is where you learn to accept certain forms of dysfunction. This is where you came to find certain things to be funny that maybe are not funny. Hmm? Yes. This is where you learn to see a white woman acting as a matriarch, leading the affairs, leading the family, and complaining, and people accepting it as though it's a state of normalcy, which is to say, it was an example of behavior that was accepted and not corrected. And we watch it on repeat. And this is just one that we see in common. Yes. And there's a important aspect of this being in common, that we all know this movie, whether you're white, black, purple, blue, American, European, African, Latin American, you all know this movie. And you know, another fascinating thing about this movie is, and there's nothing wrong with that, but you notice I've scrolled a number of panels. Like, if you're Chinese, you're not in the movie. Imagine that culture has been shaped in a way, and you're taught about something that doesn't even include you. So if you're Chinese, you're not even in this movie, but you still watch it every year and you understand Christmas to be this, which doesn't include you. So it creates certain ideals that you follow. You know, like maybe it's more of a Christmas if people look like, you know, this. Maybe it's more Christmas if everyone in your family looks like that. Maybe it's less Christmas if they don't. We're going to move on from this, but there's a reason a lot of people repeatedly said Home Alone, because this was pushed out. It was pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And there are various reasons for that. Some of them could be certain groups seeking cultural dominance, possible. Also, could be sheer capitalism. Could be people made a movie, they want it to be popular and make money, and every time it plays every year, they get royalties, of course. But let's also take a look at the lead actor, Macaulay Culkin. Macaulay Culkin. Let's see what came of him. These are some of the better photos of Macaulay, but we know Macaulay has seen some hard, hard times. He played a sweet, innocent kid. But we know that Macaulay has seen some dark, dark times. Yes. Yes. Macaulay's seen some rough, rough times. And this aspect of Macaulay has not been a part of the narrative. And that's an important thing, right? It's important. They don't show the whole story, which is to say, even the kid who was a part of what you would think is a good American family, right? That's what the movie is about, an average, good, upright, well-to-do American family. Even the guy who was pretending to be that wasn't actually that. And what we do as human beings is we imitate and we pretend. And so we were basically pretending to be the pretender. You know, he wasn't even what he was pretending to be. And then we pretended to be the image that he was a part of creating, when in actual fact, he's just this guy right here, an addict. Hmm? Now, let's rewind a bit, because how did we come here to where your identity, your culture is created by the movies? Yes? How do we land here? Let me rewind with you. And mind you, of all the examples that we could have, I'm not saying that Home Alone is a particularly negative or bad movie. It does have some disturbing themes in it. Yes, no doubt. Certainly has some disturbing themes. If you look back, do you see any strong patriarch? No. Do you see people being disrespected? Hmm? Do you see rude, unruly, unpleasant white women in there? Hmm? Creating an example to women of how they can speak and behave without consequence. You see a lot of women leading things within that family. Hmm? Anytime anything goes wrong, who gets blamed? Is it the male character or the female character? These are all very subtle things to pay attention to. And what I'm pointing out to you is that Where we've landed with matriarchy today is not by accident. It's not by accident.